Considering a competitive university or selective university, it's the same phrase, really. As mentioned, my name's Daniel. I work for the University of Exeter, and it's great to be able to represent a competitive university, a Russell Group university, to deliver this talk. Obviously, there are lots of competitive universities, so we'll be sort of considering them at large. I'll mention a little bit about Exeter at the start, but generally we'll be talking generally about universities. If you do have any questions throughout, do pop them in the chat. It might be that I answer them later in the talk, so if I ignore your questions, don't be offended. And then there will be time for Q&A at the end anyway. So all your questions will be answered. I'll probably be about 20 to 30 minutes on the talk, depending on how much I waffle. So there'll be plenty of time for questions afterwards. So what are we here for? We're here to understand what a competitive university is. So we'll have a bit of a think about what makes a university competitive, why some more competitive than others. We're going to think through the benefits of attending a competitive university. So why would you go to a university that's more competitive over a university that's easy to get into? On paper, it seems like going to an easier university might be simpler, might save you some trouble and some difficulties and some work. So what are the rewards of going to a more competitive university? And then we're going to think through how to apply to a competitive university. Obviously, it's coming up for those of you in year 12, lower sixth, first year of college, whatever you call it, coming up to that time where you will be applying to these universities. So how do you go about applying, and some tips for that as well. So what is a competitive university? What makes a university all the more competitive? If I was with you in a classroom, I'd get you to sort of chat about it and share some ideas, but I'm sure some of these may be more obvious than others anyway. Research intensive is what makes a university more competitive. And if they're part of the Russell Group of universities, I'll come on to explain in a moment, these are the research intensive universities. So these are universities that will be at the forefront of research in their particular academic areas. So, for example, at Exeter, we've got academics who are involved in the sort of COP26 discussions. They're involved in the sort of COVID, working out some of the modelling and to do with the vaccines as well. So we've got people at the forefront of research. An excellent learning experience as well. So these are places where you are going to learn from the top academics, where you are going to have an excellent learning experience with great facilities as well, both from the academic side, but also a sporting side as well, perhaps, great accommodation, facilities, but also reputation. Reputation is probably one of the biggest ones that makes a university competitive. If I asked you to name 5 of the top universities in the country, if I got you all to write them down, I'm sure there'd be a lot of crossover amongst those 5 that you write down. So there is just something about a reputation, isn't there? Not just from you guys in applying to university, but also your parents. If there's any parents logged in today, I'm sure you have universities in mind that just have good reputations, going back to perhaps when you were at university or at a similar age. So reputation is a really, really big one. Little few statistics about Exeter just as we start, because that's how I'm representing. I won't drag out all of these, but as you can see, we're a Russell Group university. On the top left there, we've got gold in the Teaching Excellence Framework. That's like the Ofsted for universities. So we've got gold in that, which is we're really proud of. Top 40 most international universities in the world, often ranked quite high for most of our subjects as well. We're high for sport as well. So yeah, loads of statistics there for you. This is where we are in the country. So probably about 2-ish hours drive away from you on a good run, maybe 2.5 hours drive away. There's direct train from Birmingham as well down to Exeter. So it's located in the lovely county of Devon, and we've got a campus in Cornwall as well at Penryn that has some of our sort of environmental biological courses. So it's not too far away. So if you're looking at sort of roughly the 2-hour mark for university, then maybe you might consider Exeter as one of your options. It's a really picturesque university. You'll see a video just in a moment if it works. So it is located near the seaside. So often students after exams, jump on the train for 20 minutes and go to some beautiful beaches as a way to unwind. So it is quite a unique learning experience in that regard. So I'll show you a video now about the University of Exeter, but also it's a bit of an advert for university generally, really, of societies and things that you can get involved in while you're at university.
You can feel it here. From the people and the places to finding your place. This is where it's all possible. Because while everyone else talks about a better tomorrow, we're committed to making it happen. And you can be part of it. You can be part of this. When you're part of the University of Exeter, you'll help make the world greener, healthier, and fairer. You'll know that green is more than the color we wear. We live by it. You'll stand as proud on the pitches as you will in our labs, studios, and lecture theatres. In fact, you'll take that feeling everywhere you go, because everywhere is where our commitment to a better future is coming to life. You'll join the pursuit of new knowledge. You'll find your voice, and you will be heard. Our education welfare team and well-being service ensure that mental health support is available when our students need it, so that they can continue to thrive. When you're part of this place and this community, our shared values become part of you, woven into who you are and what you achieve. Whether you're reaching out with the country's largest university volunteering society, or you're digging deep into inequalities and how we can resolve them, together we will lead the way to a green, fair, and socially just future. And that feeling of knowing it's all possible, that's what it feels like to be part of the University of Exeter.
Great, there we go. So there's a bit of a flavour of Exeter, but also a flavour of university generally, what it's like going to university and all the great experiences and fun that you can get involved with. So Russell Group universities, I've mentioned this already. Russell Group universities are 24 leading universities in the UK for research power. Their universities are generally found at the sort of top of the league tables and academic tables for various, well, for overall universities, but also for various subjects as well. And they're often in the top 100 of the worldwide universities as well. So there's a bit of a list of them. I'm sure many of them you may know well. You've got Oxford and Cambridge on there, us at Exeter, Birmingham, close to yourselves. You've got Scottish universities in Edinburgh and Glasgow. You've got Cardiff representing Wales, and even Queen's University, Belfast. So there's a bit of a list. Often these are the sort of top reputation universities, but little disclaimer that there are some top universities in the UK that aren't part of the Russell Group. So in particular, St Andrews, Leicester and Bath aren't part of the Russell Group, but are often ranked quite highly in the UK as well. But the Russell Group generally does have the sort of brand and reputation attached to it. So what does this mean for me? Well, Russell Group universities do attract the highest number of students who achieve top grades. So people going to these universities are going to be the people who, have more of the letter A in their grades than perhaps B and C. So because that's what the entry requirements are like. Some courses may be a little bit lower in terms of their entry requirements, and particularly there might be some contextual offers available for students from disadvantaged backgrounds. But often it is the higher grades that are required to get into these universities. In terms of employability and salary, going to a top Russell Group university or a competitive university will mean that you are far more employable after university. It will mean that you earn on average more in salary than if you don't go to a competitive university or if you don't go to university altogether. So there are statistics on your overall salary over your career. There's high levels of student satisfaction. Students know that they're going to these universities, getting a great learning experience, getting great graduate outcomes and employability as well. So there is high levels of satisfaction in the student surveys that take place. And you've got academics delivering world-class research as well. As already mentioned, you're going to be learning from people at the forefront of their field. When I was at university, I was learning from people who were setting me books to read that they'd written themselves, which felt a little bit arrogant, but actually it was just because they were at the forefront of their particular field. So that, their books were the ones that they were setting me as their reading. So what could you study? Well, in summary, loads. There's thousands and thousands. I think off the top of my head, over 30,000 courses in the UK that you can study. And at competitive universities, there's thousands of different courses that you can study related to more science subjects, engineering type subjects, perhaps health subjects, medicine subjects, humanities subjects like English, history, or social science subjects, geography, law, business, things like that. Comparing courses. This is a really, really key thing to mention. So if, for example, you're interested in a subject like history, as mentioned there, you might think to yourself, well, history's history, isn't it? It doesn't really matter where I study, history is going to be the same across the board. But actually, within history alone, there's over 2,500 courses offered by 150 institutions in the UK. So loads of courses. And University of Exeter is one of them. But even within Exeter, this one university, you can study at 2 different campuses. And your learning experience at those 2 campuses could be quite different. And so you might think, well, history is history, it doesn't matter where I study. But actually, one university that you look at might be more modern history, and another university might be more ancient history. And unless you do your research, you're not going to know what the modules are like until you turn up at university, and it's too late by that point, isn't it? So actually, it's really important that you've done your research, that you dig deep into what the course is like. And the best place to do that is on university websites. You can look on their modules that are on there. That's the best place to have a look. Or visiting universities at open days and asking questions about what you're going to be studying, what you're going to be learning. Because actually, you might find you really like the look of a university. Maybe you visit it, it looks beautiful, you can feel yourself at home there. But actually, for the course that you're interested in, maybe it's not quite right for you. So how do you go about shortlisting universities then? Well, the first thing to get right is the course and the subject. And I would recommend deciding on what course you're going to do before deciding what university you want to go to. For similar reasons as to what I just mentioned, you might decide you really like the look of, Cardiff University. And you've had a friend who went there, you went to visit them, you could see yourself being there. But actually, they might not do the course that you end up deciding to do, or if they do it, it might be completely different to how you want to do it. So make sure you nail down what course you want to do first before you shortlist the universities. And actually, by deciding what course you want to do, you might restrict the number of universities that do it anyway, so you might be helping yourself out. Entry requirements is really, really key. Hopefully, you're finding out your predicted grades soon, or you already have, perhaps. If you're someone who's predicted A, B, B, then applying to universities that are asking for A star AA is not going to be particularly wise, because that's 3 grades above your predicted grades. Whereas actually applying for somewhere that is the same as your predicted grades is a lot more realistic. Maybe you could have one sort of aspirational application out of your 5 choices that is perhaps a grade higher. But generally, you don't want to be applying for places that are many, many grades higher than your predicted grades, because you might not get many offers. And looking out for things like specific course requirements as well, subject requirements, So if you're applying for engineering, you'll need maths for most courses in the UK. If you're applying for medicine, you'll need biology and chemistry. So making sure you've got the right A levels for those entry requirements. Think about the location and the distance from home. Use someone who doesn't want to travel too far, maybe sort of within an hour's car journey is for you, or use someone who wants to get as far away as possible from the Midlands and get somewhere that your parents can't just pop to you for a weekend. That's what I did. There's positives and negatives to both, but location's a really, really key thing. Maybe you want to stay living at home, and that's absolutely fine. Lots of people do that and commute to a university closer to them as well. Think about the league rankings. And there's a few things to say on this. There's an overall league table that newspapers do. So the Guardian does one, the Times does one. There's also Good University Guide does does an overall league table ranking of universities as well. So you can look at those for the overall university, but actually for your subject may be much higher or lower than the university is ranked overall. So, for example, if you were looking at a particular university for history, maybe the university is ranked 5th, and you think, great, it's a great university, great reputation, but for history it's ranked 30th in the UK because they don't really care about it. Or maybe vice versa. Maybe you rule out a university because it's ranked 30th in the UK and you want one with a higher reputation. But actually, for history, it's ranked 2nd. So thinking that through for specific subjects as well. And the social scene, that can be a key one for people. Maybe the idea of a small university where there isn't a lot going on doesn't appeal to you, and you want to go somewhere much bigger in a bigger city, perhaps. Maybe a particular sport is really key for you. You absolutely love hockey, so you want to go to a university that values hockey really highly. Whatever it might be for you on the social scene. So it's important to shortlist, to consider all those factors when shortlisting universities. Some of those may be more important for you than others. But it is interesting sort of writing up the pros and cons of different universities. So what are universities looking for in you? We've talked about what you might be looking for in a university. What are universities looking for in you, the applicant? The main thing I'll say that they're looking for is your academic suitability, your academic interest in a particular course. Because actually the people who are going to be accepting you onto the course want to know that you're going to be working hard, you're going to be committed to the course, that you're not going to drop out after the first few months. They want you to get a good grade on the course because that is good for you and it reflects well on them as a university as well. But also they're looking for committed individuals. They're looking for people who are going to work hard, who can manage their time well. They're also looking for people who will throw themselves into university life. So people who will, get involved in the sport and the social life. They're looking for people who are well-rounded individuals who can contribute well to university life generally. So what's the application process? Competitive universities consider your achieved academic performance that you've already done in your GCSEs. Some universities weigh GCSEs higher than others. Some, like Exeter, usually just require a baseline of, a 4 in your GCSE English for most courses, and that's pretty much it. Occasionally maths, but usually just English. Whereas other universities might score your GCSEs and rank them quite importantly, maybe particularly for medicine. But the main thing they'll look at is your predicted academic performance, as I said earlier, with your predicted grades for your A-levels. So that's really, really key. So knowing your predicted grades, preferably getting some good predicted grades as well. They will consider your personal statement and teacher reference as well. And different universities will look at this in different ways. Some will rate your personal statement really importantly, and it will be the key thing that will determine whether you get an offer or not. Other universities may just come in a tie-break situation, your personal statement. But the thing is, you don't know which universities value them higher than higher or lower. So you've got to write a really good personal statement and take it really, really seriously. It's really, really vital for that. Teacher reference, obviously you're not the one writing that, but having a conversation with the teacher that's going to be writing your reference could be helpful, just to explain a bit more about why you're applying for that subject. Any extenuating circumstances will come up on your UCAS application as well. So if you've had anything that's held you back academically, if you've had any health problems or bereavement or something like that that's held you back. And then they might use possible additional admissions tests or interviews. So for medicine, they'll do the UCAT test. Law often use the LNAT test. If you're applying for Oxford or Cambridge, you may have a test. Oxford or Cambridge interview for pretty much all their courses as well. You'll have to interview for things like medicine, nursing. Portfolios could be used if you're applying for sort of design courses or architecture, and auditions for more creative courses as well. So it's really important that you research for the course you're applying for, whether there'll be any of these additional things required. In terms of the entrance requirements for courses, these will be listed on the university websites. They'll be listed on the UCAS website as well. So if you want to search on the UCAS search tool, that can be, excuse me, that can be a really helpful place to search for courses. And they'll list the grade requirements, so whether it's 3As, the subject requirements, So whether you require a particular subject at A-level to have done that, to apply for that course. And they may list the contextual offers as well. So there's one listed just there. I don't know what subject it's for, but the standard entry requirement is 3 A's. The contextual offer is 2 grades lower, A, B, B. And you can find out, usually you'll find out on university websites whether you're eligible for contextual offers. On the Exeter website, we've got a contextual offer eligibility checker. So you can answer a load of questions and we'll tell you whether you may be eligible for a contextual offer. Social life is a really, really big thing for people at university. Obviously, the main reason you go to university is to study, but a big side positive of university is the social life. For many people, it's their first time living away from home. You've got your independence. You can plan your own life for the first time. And it can be really exciting and really positive experience. And you can get involved in societies. You can get involved in sport. There's loads and loads of things at university to get involved in. At Exeter, for example, we've got over 400 societies that you can get involved in. Or I'll say a bit more on that, sorry. So often societies are related to various sports, various faith societies, political societies, charitable societies, cultural societies. We've even got some slightly sort of niche societies. We've got belly dancing society, we've got Pokemon society, hide and seek society, where you just go along and play childhood games. And if there's a society that you want to create that doesn't exist already, you could create it. If you get enough people to sort of support you, you can create your own new society as well. So universities will have loads of these societies. Often there's loads of things that you can get involved in while you're at university. So what are your next steps? Your next steps really are to be doing your research. You may have started it already. You may have, been to the UCAS fair. You may have, although the Birmingham one's coming up, so maybe you're going to that one. Maybe you've, done your research. You've been to open days. You've looked on the websites. You've spoken to people, and that's great. Or maybe this is the first time you're really thinking about it, if you're honest, and you don't know what course you're doing. Wherever you are on that spectrum, just start some research now. Okay, you can look on the UCAS website, just type in UCAS. You can look on university websites. You can order prospectuses. Visiting universities for open days is my main bit of advice. Out of your 5 that you apply for, visiting at least 3 would be recommended. Obviously, it takes time and takes money to get to these places, but visiting a place is the best way that you can get a feel for it. Because without seeing it in the flesh, it's really hard to know what it would be like for you to study there. Visiting university was the best way that I was able to determine where I wanted to go. And actually, it's really, really important to see it in the flesh, because universities make themselves look great on their websites, their marketing material. The sun's always shining. They've got happy, good-looking people on their material. But actually, until you go there and see it for yourself, it might not be as beautiful a university as it looks. It might be a concrete jungle, and without actually visiting it, you wouldn't know. So I'll take questions in a moment. That's most of what I had to say. Just a couple of things to flag just I finish. We've got a online conference happening this Saturday. If you're particularly interested in Exeter, that's from 1 till 3:30 p.m. in the afternoon on Zoom. I'll be doing that with a colleague, and I've got some students talking from a sort of student perspective. And we're asking why Exeter. So we'll have a talk on Exeter. We'll have a talk on personal statements. So some tips for writing personal statements if you're not sort of quite sure about how to write your personal statement. And there'll be the chance to ask some current students questions as well. So that's this Saturday. So do take a photo of that QR code if you're interested in that. And then on the next slide, we've got a conference for parents and supporters as well. So a free online webinar for parents, guardians, carers, relatives and supporters on applying to the University of Exeter on the 26th of September. So if you're interested in either of those, do feel free to sign up. Well, thank you very much for listening. I really hope that was helpful. Kept a reasonable time, so I'm proud of myself. Do feel free to ask any questions. I'll be honest, I've not been looking at the chat. So apologies if you've written something on there, but I'm happy to answer any questions now.
That's grand. Dan, thank you very much indeed. That was really comprehensive. I have got a couple of questions that I can ask whilst we're waiting for anything in the chat. And I would encourage anybody to ask questions, either students or parents. But could I just ask a couple of things that we'd had beforehand? Sure. Thank you, Dan. in the application process, how important is the possibility of doing an EPQ? Some students are considering doing that, and I know that for some of the Russell Group applications, that can be considered a real bonus. Can you talk us through that a little bit, please?
Yeah, really great question. The EPQ is really valuable, whether a university considers it for their grades or not. Is really valuable regardless, because it is doing that sort of higher level of work, doing that research and writing, that the skills that you will be using at university. So even if a university doesn't consider it in a grade sense, it's good to put on your personal statement as well. But a lot of universities do. So for example, at Exeter, if you get an A in the EPQ, it drops your grade requirements by 1 grade. So really good thing to do from a grades point of view. Other universities do similar. I've heard of a few that do similar. But as I say, even if a university doesn't, for grade sense, putting it on your personal statement, showing that you've done that sort of independent reading and research and writing is really helpful.
That's great. And I think Faye and myself were at a conference last week at Warwick, and there were a collection of people from different Russell Group universities. And I think that is a somewhat common theme, because I think it encourages the admissions tutors to see that higher level of thinking, the discursive kind of arguments, and actually that encourages them to see how you would learn and be taught and contribute in one of those Russell Group universities. So that's really interesting. Thank you. Other than grades, are extracurricular activities such as work experience and reading into the subject, I've been asked, are they the main things to consider in addition to your grades when looking at competitive universities?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say grades is the top thing. Achieved grades and even more so predicted grades. That'll be the first thing that most universities are looking for. But then on your personal statement, outlining work experience you've done, outlining reading, research, volunteering, Duke of Edinburgh, all things like that. I mean, on your personal statement, generally, helpful advice I've heard is to keep it 75% academic and 25%, other things that you've done. Other people may have different advice, and that's fine. There's no set rule, but that's something that I've heard that's helpful. But particularly on your personal statement, rather than just writing a list of things that you've done, I've done this and it was really great, I've done this, blah, 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 actually saying, okay, this is what I did, this is what I learned from it, this is the skill I learned from it, and this is how it would be helpful for me on this course or at university. So not just this is what I've done, but this is what I've done, this is what I learned from it, and this is how it'd be helpful for me at university. Is a good way of linking it.
I think that's the extension of being reflective, and I think that is taking it to that next level. And I think sometimes students do that really, really well in their class with their subject tutors, but actually to display that higher level, I think in their personal statements, it is very useful, isn't it? It's not just what you've done, it's what that actually means. And also, if things didn't go right, how you might do things differently, or where you'd have liked to have taken that to, or whatever it is. And I think for students who are online, it's quite an interesting concept to be a little bit more reflective about your subject and your studies and what that might mean. That's excellent, thank you. Do the Russell Group universities have foundation years, is one of the questions that I wanted to put to you, and perhaps that slightly lower entry level, just thinking about how to sort of reach out to those students who might be just on that cusp.
Some do. Some, I've definitely seen some Russell Group universities that do. Some might offer them sort of as a general thing, so like foundation engineering or foundation humanities, and then depending on how you're doing that foundation year, on your grades could lead you into the first year of a specific course. So I've seen that at some universities. At Exeter, for example, we don't offer foundation years, but we do, as I mentioned earlier, have the contextual offers for people from certain backgrounds. often, to be fair, often at Russell Group universities, to qualify for a foundation year, you may have to qualify for some particular contextual admissions as well anyway. So depending on where you live, your school, your sort of free school meals, things like that. So it does depend. So they're not as common in Russell Group universities, but the ones that do, may have some additional requirements as well.
That's really helpful. And Faye's very busy putting in in the chat lots of links. There's obviously the UCAS exhibition of universities, which I think is very, very useful for students to go to. It's a really good preliminary, I think, for students who can go and talk to either students and the outreach people at all of the variety of universities across the spectrum of applications. And also there we've got Faye's put in there the entry requirements of contextual offers for the University of Exeter, and I would encourage all students and parents to look into those. I think in Futures Week and following that in our college, we delivered sessions through the PTs to students about the UCAS application process, and I think the contextual information, there is a very easy access to some of those that is gathered together now, and we'll make sure that we circulate all of that information following, and I think Faye's just putting that in the chat, preempting me there. Can you just tell me a little bit, Dan, about the teaching and learning, the difference perhaps? I know you touched upon, the experience of being taught by people who are at the forefront of their own professions and still developing, their own research. Are there any other differences of the feel of the place or the teaching and learning? What would you say is the biggest difference?
Yeah, I think but before I forget, in fact, I was just going to say I'll be there next Monday at UCAS, so come and say hello.
Yeah.
Meet me in person. I'll be there with 3 students, so you can come and meet me as an old timer or meet a current student and get a better perspective.
I'd encourage all students to do that, because I think talking to students as well as somebody such as yourself is so invaluable. Thank you.
Definitely. Yes, so in terms of teaching and learning, I'd say the main difference is the variety of styles. You may be used to, school up to year 11 or college. I'm sure it's quite similar that you're in a classroom with, at school, probably 30 of you, at college, maybe fewer, maybe more, I don't know. But at university, there's a real variety. So I'd say the most common way is through lectures. Depending on the size of the course, you may be in a lecture theatre with 100, 200 people, and there'll be someone stood at the front talking on a particular topic for 50 minutes, an hour. Maybe it's a double lecture, 2 hours on a particular topic, and you'll be expected to write notes, to try and sort of gain some of the information and retain it. So that's quite one way in terms of lectures. Some courses may be more lecture heavy than others. Most universities and courses have seminars as well, which is more small group, between sort of 6 to 12 people perhaps. Sat in a room, you'll have been expected to do some reading, perhaps, or discussion on a particular topic. So it'll be a lot more interactive, small group. And then depending on the course you're doing, there may be lab work, there may be field trips. It's medicine, there could be dissections, there could be placements, teaching placement, nursing placement, health placement, medicine placement, probably some other methods that I haven't thought of as well. So there's a lot more variety. Is what I'd say, and it does slightly depend on the course you're taking, but a lot of variety at university.
And do many students go on to further research and further study proportionately, perhaps at some of the Russell Group universities, going on to PhDs, masters, that kind of thing?
Yeah, quite a lot do. I don't have the exact statistics on what percent do. I'd say this is just completely anecdotally from my peers and from people that I know, roughly I'd say about 1 in 4 tend to go on to do a master's, and the numbers, obviously even smaller than on for a PhD, because masters tends to just be 1 year, perhaps 2 years after university, whereas a PhD is another 3 or 4 years. So people only tend to go on to a PhD if they're really committed to staying in academia as a sort of long-term job. It tends to be, whereas a master's can just be a helpful extra qualification for a year to make you more employable, or if you're keen for the subject still, but you you don't want to stay in academia. So I'll say a significant number do, but the majority tend to just do the 3 years.
That's super, thank you. We'll draw to a close in a few moments, and I'd just like to draw out a few points for students from some of the things that you've kind of highlighted, if I may. I think the most important thing that I've gathered from that, and I hope students and parents have too, is that the academic suitability is really in these Russell Group universities, in these competitive courses, it is the academic suitability that people are looking for. So being realistic, aspirational, but being realistic is probably one of the biggest messages, certainly I've taken from that. To demonstrate that commitment, to know the course, to know the university, to visit those universities is really important. We know that that's not always possible for everybody. So something like the UCAS Fair is actually not a substitute, but it's certainly a really good way of talking to people who are very familiar with the surroundings, the courses, the kind of issues that face new undergraduates. So talking to students I think is a really great idea. So visiting the universities, asking lots of questions and really preparing, I think, for that. And then just thinking about that reflection and thinking about the subjects that you're going to study and making sure that that course is absolutely the right course before you choose that university, and then make sure that that is all connected as well. Looking at the contextual offers can be really important because that actually can aid students who need it, and that's what it's there for. It's there to be supportive. And certainly looking at those entry requirements and making sure that all of those match, and making sure that the selection of universities you make have some really good, solid, safe choices, as well as some aspirational ones to make that a really realistic application. Have I missed anything out, Dan?
No, that was a very helpful summary. Thank you. Thank you, Louise.
No, that's brilliant. Well, Faye's been really busy with these links. Thank you, Faye. And what we will do is we will circulate your presentation with your permission, and also the recording of this to those people who have attended and those who'd actually advertised that they wanted to come and hadn't been able to. And those links will be on there and we'll repeat them again. But Dan, thank you very much indeed. I encourage students to come and see you on your stand next week in Birmingham. And thank you very much for this evening. We do appreciate, your time and efforts, and thank you to students and parents for coming on this evening to our last of this academic year's speaker series. Thank you very much indeed all. Take care and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.